Honest Hearts. It's the second major DLC for Fallout New Vegas, but it's going to be played first before all the rest. Why? Simple. The level cap. See, Fallout New Vegas released with a level cap of a staggering 30. Honest Hearts' recommended level is in the teens. The rest go up from there. So naturally, we're going to start with the easiest and go from there. Honest Hearts received mixed reviews, with the most common criticism being it's mundane. The first and only time I ever played through it, I would have to agree. But it's not the first time. So this is going to be an unbiased review. So I have to ask the question, was Fallout New Vegas Honest Hearts as bad as I remember? Before I get into the run, let me explain my character with a short rundown. I sided with Mr. House all the way up until the end before choosing Yes Man. I got help from the Boomers and the Enclave. I destroyed the Brotherhood of Steel, and I threw the General off the dam. My build was guns, with the Enclave heavy armor towards the end. I have most points put into guns, speech, medicine, and barter. This is what I would estimate the average person is doing in his or her playthrough. So the Mojave belongs to the Courier. Now the Courier is off to the land of Zion after hearing a broadcast. The broadcast leads Joe Beretta to the middle of nowhere in the North Mojave, a cave area where you have to press E. Then the door is completely different on the outside and the inside. I talked to a man named Jed Masterson, quite a name. With a barter check, I learned that the Happy Caravan Company is doing really bad. He also notes the white legs are very dangerous. This is important for later. A man named Ricky I convinced to carry stuff, which I'm not exactly sure what that does, but it exists. I only have 100 pounds with which to carry, so I give Boone quite a lot of the stuff that I had because it's imperative that I carry the Remnant's power armor and its 45-pound glory. Side note, the power armor differences between Fallout 3 and New Vegas and Fallout 4 is funny, and the show. In New Vegas, it's skinny, while in Fallout 4, it's really chunky and far different. I think I prefer the Fallout 4 and the 76 and the show's power armor, but it's far more versatile in New Vegas. Anyways, there's stories about the Burn Man from Caesar's Legion. Something the people of the Legion talked about at one point in his camp. We finally reach Zion, then everyone dies. It's a massacre. I retaliate by killing the white legs and then accidentally killing the tribal who was supposed to help me. Upon a reload, he takes me on a long walk all the way to his camp. There's a guy named Two Bears high-fiving. Joshua Graham expected another courier. This is an interesting point of note, as it will be important later. For now, though, we just know that there's another courier. Graham called me a Gentile, which I found really amusing.
Even Gentiles. We can't expect God to do all the work.
Gentiles. He says the Legion will fall apart without Caesar after I tell him Caesar is dead. Funny, for some reason in the TV show, the Legion still exists and is super strong despite Mr. House living. What a wonderful lack of writing abilities on the show writer's part. He also says Lanius can't lead, and the Legion dies with Caesar. The dialogue cut off for some reason, so I just go with whatever his name is on a long walk. The difficulty is spiked. His perk isn't very useful. Plus 3 perception for 3 minutes after reaching a summit is kinda ass. And it does nothing against the giant Kazdor that almost kills me. I'm poisoned for 870 years, and after that, I finally sleep. Then the game rains. I've never seen it rain. I didn't even know it could rain. This is awesome. I'm glad it did rain because it made the experience so much more fun and interesting. The vibes of this DLC so far are incredibly interesting. A desert, but different to the Mojave we're used to. So I enter the general store, and I crash on a funny frame. Okay, so I enter the general store again and deal with the mantises. Inside, I get 5 lunchboxes that weren't a pain in the ass to get at all. No. Then it has you walking north a bit to another building. Inside, I gather alcohol and supplies for the medical kits. Now it wants you to walk all the way northeast. Instead, First, I enter a fishing hut for walkie-talkies. I'm not exactly sure what this is for, but whatever. I grab a fire axe from the Whitelegs who drug me, I smash them together to repair them, and I'm using a lot of close-range engagements for this DLC so far because the lack of ammo laying around for the guns that I have, at least a lack of .308 rounds, and the 9mm pistol is deteriorating faster than a drunken marriage from New Vegas, and it's not doing a lot of damage. I finally meet Daniel. He's a holy man trying to save and spread the good news to the sorrows. Too bad he's a Mormon and follows a gospel entirely different to actual Christianity. He also calls me a Gentile. He dismisses my companion and sends me on a long journey to save the tribes. On my first playthrough, this is where I just blasted him in the face for the map to get out of there because it was incredibly boring up to this point. And yeah, it was boring. But it's actually getting interesting now that I'm continuing on. I get a new companion called Walks in Shadows, I think. She can help me sneak around the Whitelegs in my big power armor. She wants me to see some shaman dude who tells me to take a bunch of drugs. Yeah, well, I was already drugged earlier and it was not fun. I learned that this bald lady who's walking barefoot in the hot desert sand is a midwife who helps deliver babies. She's also got a husband and children of her own. I also learned there's caves of some father and the holy wife and son. I'm not exactly sure what any of this means, and I doubt it's going to be further explained to me unless I do some super duper explorative quest out of nowhere. Spoiler, I do. I talked to Daniel about the situation. Turns out she's a widow. He somehow got that information that the kids are safe, but the husband is dead. He doesn't want me to tell her. All right, whatever, man. I don't. I really want to find the holy caves they talk about with the language and the holy tongue, and I have no idea what's happening. Not at all. Anyways, I go off to collect Datura and fall through terrible collision meshes. Yes, this is vanilla. The man with a terrible microphone makes me drink the Datura potion and tells me to go off and find some she-bear or whatever. Now my screen is all bright and slightly blurry. I am heavily drugged. I can't fast travel either, so I walk through the area to crash. Okay, so I walk through the area to find Joshua Graham standing there telling me to talk Daniel into killing the Whitelegs instead of just fleeing Zion. Ideological differences. So first quest, I place explosives in the cave to blow it up. This passes the quest for some reason. I level up and I take the pack mule perk that lets you fast travel while you are over encumbered. This will be handy for later. I'm now taking a lot of points into lockpicking and science because I feel as if it will have a need later in the DLCs. Anyways, I feel like everything at this point is made out of fucking admentium. The way they're penetrating my power armor. Geckos are four-shotting me, and I'm only fucking level 20. And this is recommended for the level teens. It's insane. And the Yao Guai is fucking two-shot you. And, dude, I didn't write it down in the script, but the she-bear fight, there's like 3 fucking flaming Yao Guais, and it's awful. Otherwise, I disable all the traps by accidentally stepping in them, and then I have to deal with the Whitelegs themselves. Well, I do just that after almost dying several times because they're overpowered for some fucking reason. There's a cave that the tribe lady tells me not to go into, but I say, okay, whatever. I learn more on what the father caves are now, as this is the guy. Yes, that guy. I tell Daniel, and he says that the sorrows picked up really easily on the concept of the father, the son, and the mother. They combine their tribal religion with a new Canaanite religion, because the guy who was protecting over them was called the father, and he had a wife and a son. This side story is ultimately a sad tale, and it's one of my favorite side stories in the entire game. A man named Randall Clark was an army man who survived the bombings of 2077. He protected the tribes of Zion and became mythical from them. He became the father of the caves. He lost his family to the war and felt something fatherly to the tribes, and his death allowed the sorrows to flourish. This storyline was honestly a really nice and touching side story. I get his survivalist rifle as well, and a lot of 12.7mm, which is 50 caliber rounds. I'm going to assume it's like the 50 Beowulf round. I don't know if you could put it in the anti-material rifle. Anyways, it's now up to me, the courier, Joe Beretta, to decide whether to flee Zion or stop the Whitelegs altogether. Well, the Whitelegs followed a tribe in here, so even if they were left alone, who's to say they wouldn't do the same with even more morale and power? I choose to crush the Whitelegs. We painstakingly walk to Three Marys, fighting Whitelegs along the way. Inside Three Marys, they explode some rocks, which makes me go through a cave, then out, and eventually we'll find Salt Over Wounds, the leader of the Whitelegs. Joshua Graham, who somehow went around to get here, wants to kill him, but I choose mercy and convince Graham to let him live. This way, the tribes learn a lesson. No one is martyred, and the sorrows and dead horses can live in peace inside their own lands. The Whitelegs are thrown back to the Salt Lakes of Utah and are never seen again. It's important to note why Graham was so hell-bent on killing Salt Upon Wounds. He explains that it's because he wants his anger to be God's anger, and eventually he wanted to take revenge out on Caesar. A few things about this. A. In the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 19, Paul wrote, "Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, 'It is mine to avenge, I will repay,' says the Lord." Mercy is a far greater weapon, especially in this situation, than vengeance. A lot different to how I handled General Oliver at the dam. We could say that this is the courier reflecting upon and regretting and repenting for his actions of killing the general at Hoover Dam. And B, Caesar is already dead at the hands of the courier. I know this is supposed to take place before the end of the game, but even then, the Legion is a dead man walking, if we just disregard the show that throws a lot of the canon out of the fucking window anyways. Even if Lanius were leading, which he's not because he's dead at this point, and he will die in the end, which, he's not alive because I'm doing this after the game. There's no one to take revenge upon. So the story of this DLC was lackluster, but it was it had some nice little side stories. If it were a side quest in the game rather than its own DLC or free expansion or whatever, it'd have been a lot cooler. Sadly, the DLC is plagued by walking simulator gameplay mechanics alongside big hills, making it a lot more tedious than it needs to be. The soundtrack was, lacking. I only noticed under a handful of new tracks. The gameplay is virtually the same, except there's way too many fucking cazadors and things that can tread your health for no reason. A lot of melee users as well. Other than mild grievances that annoyed me, the gameplay is adequate. They love to throw 45 auto at you, which I loved it. I lived for it. I had to pick up random guns throughout the playthrough to conserve my 308 and 50. So, the 45 auto and the SMG came in real handy, especially towards the end with Graham's perk. His perk is literally making 45 auto guns better. What a Chad. And a nice little side story with the father of the caves, and yeah. So really, was Honest Hearts as bad as I remember? No, not at all. It's much better than I remember. I wouldn't go out of my way and say it's great or really recommend it. It's certainly not my favorite DLC, at least from what I remember. Yeah. But it's a nice change of pace, and the tribal shenanigans were neat when they did come into play. The aura, vibes, and general feel of the DLC are a lot better this time around, even if they are a little boring at times. So yeah, Honest Hearts was decent. But were the other DLCs any good?